On this week's episode of the Program Guys podcast, we look ahead to when OU and Texas join the SEC. Who are the guys looking forward to seeing when the Sooners face off in the Southeastern Conference? We recap a chaotic lockout for the MLB and where it stands after another day of tense negotiations. We circle the wagons and beg people to pitch to Jocelyn Allo. Ryan tells us to watch Encanto, and Pat gives a shocking hot take about one of the best games on OU's football schedule. All right, let's get started.
3, 2, 1.
There's not one guy, one person in the history of this program that's bigger than the program.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
Ooh, what's up and welcome into the Program Guys podcast, episode number 8. I am Mason Prince, joined as always by Matt Gann, Patrick Hertzberger, Ryan Tyson, and Mark Hall. Today is Tuesday, March 1st. I almost said February 29th, but I didn't. Welcome to March. This is March. The NCAA basketball tournament starts this month. Should be a fun time. But guys, how we feeling? OU men's basketball coming off of a win against Oklahoma State. They are no longer dead in the water. I think they still got to win the rest of their games, but I think our morale is high on OU basketball for once. Is it?
Did anybody else watch that game, or is that just me? They blew like a 13-point lead.
Yeah,
they scored 6 points in the last 10 minutes.
I watched the second half for sure, and it was rough. It was rough. I was cursing at the TV. I was actively saying to my father that I was watching it with, I can't believe I wasted my Saturday watching these bums, is what I think I said after they blew that lead.
So I think to answer your question, like, good win, great win, Bedlam win, but is morale high? No, morale is not high.
Morale's not high. Good to know. Good to know. How's everybody else doing besides that? It's an earlier pod this week. Blame me. I'm traveling. I'm going to Alabama later on in the week for work, so we had to
Dadgum Bama.
Yeah, you're gosh dang right. How's everybody feeling? How we doing?
Good for me. The spray tan has held it up. So
yeah,
you look great. Tan.
You look great.
Pat looks
you
great.
You look
man.
more orange now, actually.
Really? You think so?
To me, he
the
does.
lighting. I don't know.
It's the lighting. You think?
Maybe.
Okay.
Pat hopes it's lighting.
Matt,
I should throw the tank back on.
Yeah, you should. Matt, how you doing?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good, living better. But I do want to say I do have an undisclosed source that Mark had a great weekend, and I'm hoping to see he started off Monday on a good foot because we all know last week a little bit of rough. So I do want to check in with Mark. How we feeling, baby?
Mark, how we doing today?
I'm good.
Someone have a case of the Mondays, or are we good?
No, man, it was a pretty good Monday. I got some stuff done at work. Amazing. And no problems beside that. So, hey, happy
also
to be
shout
here
out to Mark.
With the guys.
You got a like on Twitter from Marvin Mims.
We love it.
Shout out to you.
Hey, all I'm doing is repping for a guy who deserves it, and I'm glad he saw it. Glad he appreciated it.
We've been saying it since the beginning. This is the #1 Marvin Mims podcast in the world. So shout out to him for finally recognizing that.
It's great.
Really appreciate that. Let's talk some football, guys. Not a whole lot going on in the world of OU football right now, but we can still have a little fun. Talk a little bit about it. OU and Texas. We don't know when they're going to be in the SEC, but let's play a little pretend game, shall we? Let's look into our crystal ball, look into the future, whatever year that may be, 2023, 2024, 25, whatever it is. OU is going to be in the SEC at some point or another, and they're going to play those SEC teams, those monsters, those giants. Who are you guys looking forward to seeing OU play when that time comes?
Texas.
Okay, Patrick.
Can't wait to play Texas.
I'm excited.
Do you want to add an A&M on the end of that, or just
actually
Texas?
No? I want to play A&M every second year. I think that'll be more fun.
You think? Okay.
Yeah, I want Missouri in there just because I'm fine with having a below average team and playing a below average team every season. And yeah, I'll take Arkansas instead of A&M.
Do you guys? I'll let everybody else finish. I have something to ask after this, but who do you want to see them play, Mark?
So I took this more as like, what do you think the division should be? Because I think you
okay,
play
that's where I
everyone
was going to go
in
with
your
it. Yeah.
division once, right? Like every single year, and then everyone else you kind of rotate. So my thought is Texas every year, no doubt. It's in the Cotton Bowl, no doubt.
No hot takes about it.
We'll get to that.
Look, to even suggest otherwise is an
Blasphemy.
Inferno level take. So that's all I'm saying about that. Next, I'd love to get A&M into.
After just grabbed his bucket hat, by the way.
I'd love to get A&M in the division, but I think they are still petitioning to keep Oklahoma and Texas out of the SEC. So I'm not sure how that goes. I'm not sure how that'll work. And give me Arkansas. There's so many people who, much like Mason, grew up fans of Arkansas and the Sooners, right? Yep. Let's just capitalize on that cross-state, interstate fanhoods and make that a yearly game. So that would be the 4 that I'd pick. And then I went through how I think you break up the rest of the SEC, but I don't think we need to get into that. I think it's just those would be the fun yearly ones that I think work geographically too.
I think you're right. You could put those 4 teams that you mentioned together. You could put the 4 middle schools together, like Auburn, Alabama, Mississippi State. You could probably put those 4 together as well. And then you move on some other sort of way. I don't really know. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, we've already talked about it a little bit. I think it's going to be based on location, right? So it could be a mix of, I feel like they're always going to obviously keep OU and Texas in the same division or the same pod as what I've seen. So it's just going to come down between A&M, Arkansas, and whoever else I'm missing. So Missouri, sorry. So between those 3, 2 of them will be in our pod just based on location from what I've seen. Be interesting to see how it comes up. But Texas every year got to be in there for sure.
Yeah, it has to be. Ryan?
Just for the sake of content, I'm going to go a little differently. I think it could be OU, Texas, A&M, and LSU. And the reason that I say that is because of location. LSU is kind of down there by itself, and it's decently close to like Texas and Texas A&M. And I think that would just be, really, really good games in that division all the time. So part of me thinks they probably won't do that. Considering if we're expecting OU to be really good going into the SEC, Texas, we never know, but with the recruiting, they're supposed to be good. So, you have LSU, Texas A&M has the number 1 recruiting class. Like, you have some powerhouses in there. So I could see them not wanting to do that, but I think it could be fun. As for others, I just want to play Ole Miss every 2 years. And that's because I want to go to Oxford. I'm super excited about the away games. And once we go to the SEC and going to some of those places,
it's gonna be a lot of fun.
More fun than Waco.
Yeah, be more fun than Waco and Fort Worth. That's for sure. Like not hating on. Well, I am kind of hating on Big 12 schools for the most part, but like Stillwater, I will give Stillwater credit. Stillwater is a college town. Oxford, Mississippi is a college town. Like, I've been through there. Like, Athens is a college town. Tuscaloosa, college town. Like, these are like Norman, they revolve around the school. And like, you go to Austin, it's not that way. Granted, they're coming with us, so that's a bad example. Like, Manhattan, Kansas is super small. Lawrence is really a basketball school for the most part. I think when you go to SEC country, Pat, you've been to Knoxville, right? Knoxville feels like a college town too. I feel like it's just way different. With that being said, I really want to play Arkansas every year just because I want to have that connection with my dad to be able to talk crap all year long and have bragging rights. Selfishly, that sounds like a lot of fun. Seeing the team I grew up rooting for would be a whole lot of fun, to the points that Mark made. And even recruiting battles. Like, you're so close. Yes. You're battling for recruits in Oklahoma, in Eastern Oklahoma, even in Arkansas, definitely in Texas as well. That'd be a lot of fun. And also A&M, just because I want to smack the crap out of A&M every chance.
Have another
that OU gets
77-0 game,
dude.
don't we?
No kidding, man. Who in the world has done less but talks more? I don't know. It's
Maybe
only
Texas.
A&M. Yeah,
Texas has won a championship.
You're right.
Multiple championships.
All right.
You're right. And anybody else want? I've been on my soapbox too long. Anybody else?
No, so I think so. At first, I was thinking about this subject, and I thought, hey, we're kind of mining for content. We need to fill the innings a little bit, right? But then I thought about it a little bit, and I concluded that it's actually pretty timely because the move to the SEC, we think, is going to come sooner than playoff expansion is going to now, because those guys can't get off their asses and make decisions.
Yeah.
So the moment we hit the SEC, we have to be Alabama or be Georgia in order to get a spot, because there's only 4 spots. And that sounds aggressive probably, but I promise you that's what Brent Venables is thinking. And that's why you have the coaching staff upgrades and the infrastructure upgrades that you have to OU's staff. J.R. Sandlin was not here when Lincoln Riley was the coach. J.R. Sandlin, right? A Thad Turnipseed running operations in the background was not here when Lincoln Riley was head coach. They're preparing for something like this, for a move like this. And it's very cool to see. It's kind of a side part of the subject, but it was something I thought about, and it's interesting because we're gearing up to be one of those teams.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Do you think that they're gonna go, and this is getting more in detail and kind of speculating, but do you think they're gonna go the pod route where it's 4 teams in each pod, or are they gonna do 8 teams in the East, 8 teams in the West?
I don't know how the 8 and 8 makes a lot of sense.
You would basically play your conference every year and then the other teams every 4 years, right?
Yeah. And I feel like that
somewhere around there.
Yeah. And I don't know if that would work out. I feel like there's too many traditional matchups in the SEC that can be split up depending on how you split a division. And if you want to rotate teams and stuff like that of who you play, like Auburn and Georgia they have to play every year. They have an old traditional rivalry that needs to happen. And if you split them in East and West and they're a game that you have to play every year, then it takes away from other games and like switching stuff like that. So Auburn is constantly locked in with Georgia for at least 1 game a year.
Do you mean Alabama or Auburn and Georgia?
Auburn and Georgia.
Oh,
it's called good old, it's called like good old fashioned hate or something.
Oh.
When I lived in Georgia, they're
literally
rivals.
have never heard of that.
I know.
So I learned something new
Deep
today.
South's oldest rivalry. Good old fashioned
Deep
hate
South.
is Georgia Tech.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, correct. But yeah,
Go
Deep South.
Jackets.
Yeah, Ramblin' Wreck.
I love when I
Shout out
learn
Georgia
something
Tech,
new.
and I'm a hell of an engineer.
That's right. Shout out to Rich. Matt, do you have some?
I was just going to say it'll be interesting how they split up the pods. Now thinking about it, obviously A&M and Missouri were once part of the Big 12, moved a while back to the SEC. So do they want to bring back some of those old rivalries?
I guarantee you A&M doesn't.
I'm sure A&M doesn't want it, but it'll be interesting to see how they split up the pods, whether it's location or they want matchups or whatever it is. So really be interesting to see who they put together.
I know I said LSU earlier, but I'm gonna kind of go back on that a little bit because
okay.
Because
Here
I
we
think
go.
realistically, what they're probably gonna do is A&M is gonna bitch enough about Texas and not wanting to play them because they wanted to get away from them in the first place that they're probably gonna do Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and then the 2 Mississippi schools and LSU A&M. That would be my guess.
Possibility.
Because A&M is going to be like, well, we came to the SEC to get away from them. We want nothing to do with them. And they're going to be like scared of us. So that's what I see probably happening most likely.
That's a good take. I like that.
Is it hot, Pat?
No, I don't think it's that hot.
Boy, I don't know how you reconcile though. Hey, we're the best college football program in the country. We're the #1 recruiting class. We have Jimbo Fisher. We already have a plaque for his championship he's going to bring us with. I don't know how you reconcile that with we're afraid of the Big 12 schools that are coming in.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
maybe they do because it's in their best interest to avoid us, I'm sure. But that's a hell of a thing to tell your recruits at the same time that you're telling them, hey, come play for us.
well, they didn't want us in the SEC in the first place. They were the only school who voted against it.
No doubt they're
And
soft.
they like the
Sharman.
commissioner at SEC came out and was like, "Oh yeah, I guess I could have communicated better with A&M." And it was like, why do you need to communicate better with A&M? Everyone else was for this except this one school. I don't know.
they don't get
I just see them putting up like a bitch fest, honestly.
I mean, Sankey knew he could play games with A&M because he
Yeah.
had support elsewhere. That's
Yeah.
just what it
100.
is.
and that's why he's one of the best commissioners in college
Yeah.
football.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's because he knows what's best for the other, whatever it is, 14, 13 schools in his conference.
And he's not
worrying-
going to let A&M, hey, you joined 10 years ago. Get
Yeah.
out of here.
Yeah.
Run things.
Yeah, exactly.
Not when you can get OU in Texas.
That's right. Also, quick note before we move on. A lot of neutral site games in the SEC. Just a heads up for later. Neutral site games are big. They're
They're
important.
huge. They're very important, especially historical ones that,
Yeah,
stay in like really historic stadiums.
you're right.
Is that
That
the
is-
case? Are those games not home and home usually?
I'm mainly talking about who am I thinking of? Wow, now I'm
Well, Florida and Georgia, right?
yeah, Florida, Georgia. Matt, Matt, you joined twice. Are you frozen? What'd you just do?
I'm back, baby.
Just
All right, we lost Matt.
viewers,
Oh, you froze. Okay.
listen, I'm using a computer from college, 2013. So if it goes out, what
If
can you
you're-
do?
If,
can you do?
if you're wondering what we're
Not
talking about,
stop the
we're on-
podcast to talk about it. That's something you could do.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. If
hey,
you're
you
wondering,
say it yourself. We were mining for content, so that's what
right.
I had to make an exit.
if you're wondering what Matt's talking about, you can check it on our YouTube channel or the Program Guys podcast. You can find us on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe when you find us. Also follow us on Twitter at Program Guys with a Z. Also on Instagram at Program Guys with a Z. Be sure to follow us, vote on our polls, all that stuff. Interact with us. We love interacting with you guys. Hear what you have to say. Anybody else have anything to add on the SEC before we move on? Fantastic. Gotta love when I get the head shaking back at me. That's how you know it was a good discussion. All right, real quick, we'll get into this. I know I have a lot of notes right here, guys, but we won't spend a lot of time on it. The Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players Association is currently in a lockout. And today is Monday. Today was a deadline that the MLB and the owners set for saying if there's not a deal done, they're going to start canceling regular season games. They've already gotten into canceling some spring training games. And as of now, as of 6:49 p.m. on Monday night, there is no deal. There is currently no deal. They're still meeting in Florida. I think it's Jupiter, Florida, and they're trying to talk it out. So basically, if you don't know what's going on with the MLB lockout, here's a little quick synopsis. A really great article from Jeff Passan of ESPN. He posted earlier today. Very, very interesting. One quote that stood out to me is quote, player pay has decreased for 4 consecutive years. Even as industry revenues grow and franchise value soared, and the would-be stewards of the game pleaded to anyone who would listen that owning a baseball team isn't a particularly profitable venture. Players' service time has been manipulated to keep them from free agency and salary arbitration. The luxury tax instituted to discourage runaway spending has morphed into a de facto salary cap, and too many teams are nowhere near it anyway, instead gutting their rosters and slashing their payrolls because the game's rules incentivize losing. The commissioner has called the World Series trophy a, quote, piece of metal, and the league has awarded the team that did the best job curtailing arbitration salaries a replica championship belt, end quote. The MLB lockout started on December 2nd because the MLB put a lock on everything, not the MLB Players Association. The MLB, the people who started the lockout, didn't present an argument or a what do you call it, Pat?
Solution?
Yeah, sure. A solution. Didn't present a solution to the players union until 43 days
Proposal.
later.
Right.
A proposal.
An offer. Right.
Yes, an offer. Thank you, Mark. A lot of stuff going down, but basically the research that I've done is that this is an MLB and Rob Manfred problem. They don't want a solution. They want to cause problems. The players want to play. They want to play because that's how they get paid, but also they're young players. They're exciting players. They're trying to grow the game of baseball. And it feels as though to the fans and to the people who care about baseball and to the players that the MLB and the owners don't want that. They're worried about a bottom line, and that's all they're worried about. And they're not worried about the game. Anybody? No. I have a couple more notes, but we can continue.
No, let me jump in here.
Yes,
it makes
go.
me think of, so I'm a Braves fan on the periphery, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not paying attention day to day. I'm just not.
Yeah.
But recently, the owner of the Braves, Liberty Media, released earnings showing them making bukus of money, more season ticket sales than they've had since like 2000 or something crazy like that. Revenue out the building. And at the same time, they're hung up in contract negotiations with star first baseman Freddie Freeman over whether or not to include a sixth year versus a 5-year contract.
Yeah.
This guy is the best player on the team. They're making more money than they've ever made, and they're trying to stiff him. To me, that's a microcosm of what the owners and Rob Manfred are doing and willing to do to all of the players in this negotiation. You can tell that they don't care about having baseball ready to play. That's not their concern.
Yeah.
No, they're just going to strong arm the players until they get the kind of deal that they want. Concessions be damned.
Me, Mark, and Ryan, maybe Matt and Pat were around for this as well, but off air, we've had the conversation before about, is baseball dying? Is it a dying sport? And after the pandemic, this past year for baseball was one of the best years they've ever had, whether it be revenues, whether it be viewership, whether it be social interaction, engagement, fan engagement, whatever. You have superstars. Not only you have them in big markets where people pay attention, all of this stuff. And it feels as though the owners are doing everything they can to kill this game. And it makes zero sense to me. It makes no sense. They're causing all sorts of problems that don't need to be caused. One of the biggest sticking points is expanding the playoffs. The owners want 14 teams in the playoffs. The players countered with 12. It's a current 10-team format. Players countered with 12, and the owners will not budge. It's insanity. Baseball, a sport with no salary cap as of now. Technically no salary cap. They have something called the competitive balance tax, which taxes teams for going over a $210 million threshold in their salaries. Players want the penalties for going over that to be decreased, saving the owners money for putting a winning product on the field, while also increasing the number to around 245 million for your roster. MLB cites that as a competitive disadvantage, which is insanity. I don't understand how we're at this point. They're trying to kill baseball, and baseball's not dying, but they're sure as hell trying to make it die. I'm done.
Mason, I think that brings up a good point. I know nothing about baseball, so I'm not going to probably talk about all of this piece, but I do think a longer conversation, a more interesting conversation that we can have is, how has COVID affected sports in general? Because I think it's interesting to hear everyone talk about, after COVID, viewership has fallen on everything. You talk about, the Oscars, the Grammys, any kind of pop culture thing, but sports, they've actually risen. Like, why is that? What is the purpose of that? What is happening to, America that we're all conveying around like sports through this global pandemic? So we don't have to have that conversation now, but I think it is something interesting to see, because I had no idea that baseball was doing well after COVID. I had no clue. I mean, it's always the playoffs that people are watching, but I have really no interest in baseball, but it's good to see that a lot of people do. I think that's just a larger conversation to have around, how has this pandemic affected what we watch and how we watch it?
Yeah.
Listen, again, I grew up in Oklahoma. The only thing we have to baseball is the LA Dodgers farm team, the Oklahoma City Dodgers.
Yeah.
That's it. Not a whole lot, but I do have two things, and one specifically tailored to Mark, and maybe Mason can hop in here as well. You said Freddie Freeman was the best player. Are we just discounting Ronald Acuna Jr., who tore his ACL? Don't you think he's way more worth paying than old man Freddie the Freeman? And that's just a question towards you, Mark. I don't know how much you know about the whole Braves roster.
Just tore his ACL, and then the Braves won the championship, right?
Yeah, but Ronald Acuna Jr.
Cool. Okay, yeah.
Longer term
cool.
prospect.
I'm good.
I'm just saying.
I'm
no,
good. I'm good.
I get it.
Get
but
Ronnie
why?
his ring, and then like we're good. But still pay Freddie Freeman
For old man Freddie Freeman, huh?
Oh man,
Nah, he's kind of a face of the franchise, and your longevity in baseball, especially at the first base position, is so much longer than a 39-year-old baseball player, 38-year-old baseball player in the majors isn't an anomaly like Tom Brady is.
Bro, sign him to a 10-year deal. Everyone gets a DH now. Let him be a DH in the last 3 years of that deal. Doesn't matter.
You're right. The last thing I got, I'll end the talk with this. Passon also had a quote in there that he ended the article with. The MLB saw franchises values exploding to the point that in 2021, Forbes estimated the 30 MLB teams were worth a combined $55.28 billion. 10 years ago, only 2 collective bargaining agreements earlier, their combined valuations were $15.68 billion. Baseball's not dying, but the owners are trying to kill it.
So my only thing to that, and I know I said I had 2 points. So my first point was to Mark. I was just wanting to test his knowledge. I really just
wanted to mess with him. Yeah.
I was just trying to stir the pot because I have no idea about baseball. But
we know.
My second point, thank you, Mark. My second point, which is kind of what you're talking about, don't we think baseball is probably a top-heavy sport? Like the top 10, like probably the top, 10 teams probably make up the majority of that balance or that value, I would think. I mean, we're talking the Yankees, Red Sox, the Dodgers, any of the California teams probably make up, I don't know what the number would be, but probably make up the majority of that $55 billion value is what I would think. I would think it'd be more of a top heavy sport. It's not all 30 teams. I mean, I've seen the attendance on some of those games, like the Marlins games. I don't think there's anyone ever going to a Marlins game. So I feel like it's more a top heavy sport for sure.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And the Detroit Pistons aren't the LA Lakers. I mean, that's just the Cleveland Cavaliers aren't the Boston Celtics. You can say that about a lot of things. Baseball, I get it because there's 162 games and the empty stands. You have 81 opportunities for fans to come out and see, and the empty seats. You're right, 100%, Matt, are a lot more glaring with those lower income teams. But that's what they're trying to fix with this tax threshold. You're rewarded for being terrible. They're trying to introduce a lottery system for draft picks like the NBA does. So you can't suck and be rewarded. Tanking, I should say.
Yep.
Mark, did you have anything? You look like you were about to add something.
Yeah. So I think like you compared it to NBA teams, and I've just been sitting here stewing on this idea that all of these labor negotiations are kind of the same. They all kind of go the same. The NBA has had a couple of situations like this dating back to like 2011, since we can, really pay attention to it. Right.
Yeah.
And it always seems to go like the players propose an offer that seems pretty reasonable, and then the owners come back with something that's not. And then they go back and forth 2 or 3 times and they land on something much closer to the owner's offer than the player's offer, because these owners are worth so much more and they can wait out the players so much longer.
Yeah.
They generally come up with, enough things that the players can say they won, but it's not really close. I bet we see something like that happen here.
I think you're probably right. Pat, do you have an MLB team, right?
The Stros.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You're a Stros guy.
I only have one, just the Stros.
Name your top 5 players on the Astros.
I mean, we don't have to do that right now.
Hey Mace, I did look up
Yeah.
MLB valuations for all teams because I thought Matt brought up a good point on top heavy.
Yeah.
It's not as top heavy as I thought it was, but New York Yankees obviously 5.25 billion, Los Angeles Dodgers 3.57 billion, Boston Red Sox 3.46 billion. Every team other than one, the Miami Marlins, is worth more than $1 billion.
And the Miami Marlins are a joke.
We saw what happened.
They tore down the Orange Bowl to build that atrocity of a stadium down there in South Florida. Morons. So thank you for that, Ryan. Yes. Always good to know that Matt's wrong. Speaking of Matt being wrong, we're moving on. It's time for Circle the Wagons, everybody. Matt Ginn, he told us Jocelyn Allo was going to break the record, and she didn't. Matt, care to respond? You liar.
Yeah.
Also, Matt hates Lauren Chamberlain. Never forget.
Well, let's just start off with saying, let's give some context. I don't think I've ever seen a player more intentionally walked than Jocelyn Allo the last 5 games. I don't know how many opportunities. She got very few opportunities to actually swing the bat because they were avoiding her like the plague because they know what she's capable of. So I'm sure it's the combination of, obviously she's one of the best hitters on the team, but also she's tied for the record. So I don't know who's going to pitch to her next. We might not see it for a while, but I do want to give some update before I jump more into softball this week. I know I sent you guys offline the picture of the national rankings for all the programs that are currently running. So just give you an update on that. Softball, unanimous number 1. OU's men's golf, number 1. Women's tennis, number 2. Men and women's gymnastics are both number 2 nationally. And then we have women's basketball, who I just saw the update, got pushed from 20 to 19 after their blowout win against, I want to say, Kansas State.
TCU.
Oh,
and might have been Kansas State afterwards.
Okay. I know they played a team who was purple. So it was one of those teams. And then men's tennis coming at number 20. So if that just doesn't tell you the number of quality programs. I know we're a big football podcast here for OU football, but just gives you the idea of we're not just one program. We have multiple competitive winning programs going on when football's not around. So do want to jump into football or softball, apologies, and what their recap was. So played another 5 games. So over a 15-game stretch, OU softball is 15-0, scored 137 runs, only allowed 16, 40 smackers over the fence, 9 shutouts, 11 run rules, which one of those run rules included a ranked opponent. I know Mason was hit on last week that OU hasn't played enough people. Well, they just run ruled number 9 Arizona like it was nothing. Now, the other ranked game that they did play was Tennessee. It was actually a very, very competitive game. I've never seen Ryan more passionate, more intense, but I was loving the updates that he was giving. I thought he was going to have a heart attack. They ended up going to extra innings. You know, a normal softball game goes to 7. They went to all the way to 10 innings before Jada Coleman hit a home run to seal it. Now, I did want to go over to Ryan here because it seems like the rules for extra overtime innings is a little bit different in softball. Ryan, would you care to explain how they do a little bit differently?
Yeah, I mean, the big change is in extra innings, you automatically start with someone on second base, which is, I guess it's to speed up the game, to like get it closed out earlier because they're trying to reduce time and reduce the number of innings these women are playing. And I did not know that. So maybe because OU doesn't usually go to extra innings, but I did not know that. And I don't know, Matt, you are better at softball than me. I don't know if that's a normal rule or if that was specifically for this championship.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to look into it. I have never seen that before where you start with a runner on second base. I'll have to look into it and see if that was a rule change.
I thought you were a big baseball guy.
Huge.
Okay, well, they did it all last year in the MLB.
Softball. I was talking about softball specifically. I've never seen them do it. So MLB,
Well, I mean,
I don't really watch MLB either, so I wouldn't know either.
Yeah, but it's a rule that MLB started and everybody else kind of has picked up on just because it speeds up the game, especially in extra innings. So
Gotcha.
That asked and answered.
Gotcha. Well, either way,
Yes.
great game, great competitive game. Obviously, ending with a great OU win. Again, super stressful. Probably, obviously, the closest game that OU has been. But like we mentioned, Allo is still tied at 95. Teams are just refusing to pitch to her. I mean, they just are intentionally walking. It's got to be frustrating knowing that you really can't contribute to the team other than taking a walk. But everyone else has stopped or stepped up their game and doing that. Now, Mark's looking at me. Mark, would you care to comment?
No, I'm just counting out 95, man. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Gan,
It's very reminiscent of Barry Bonds when he was at the precipice of breaking Hank Aaron's.
Dude, yeah, they were walking Barry Bonds with the bases loaded.
Left and
Like,
right. Yeah.
that's
Literally
crazy.
sending in runners because, it's not going to be us.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, I'll say OU softball ended after playing Tennessee. They played one more game after that to end their weekend. They actually played Utah, which was another close game, 2-1. And fun fact, Patty Gasso's son, DJ Gasso, who actually went to my high school in Norman, Oklahoma, actually is an assistant coach for
Go
the
Wolves.
Utah Utes. So a great family gathering.
Utes.
Go Utes, end up losing, but it's really cool that she got to play her son in that last game of the weekend. Now, we'll say their upcoming schedule is Minnesota at home, which would be their first home game coming up on March 7th. And then they head to Hawaii to play Baylor, California, and Hawaii twice. So would it be cool to see Allo smack the record in Hawaii? I'm sure it will. We'll see who will give her the opportunity to do so. Now, I did mention a couple of those programs as well. OU's men's golf is currently ranked number 1, playing in the Southern Highlands in Vegas. They are in round number 2 of the weekend. Mason gave me the updated score. They are 29 under par, currently in the lead by 10 strokes above Texas, and they have 3 golfers currently in the top 5. Now, we mentioned a little bit earlier, OU's men's basketball got that huge overtime win against OSU. We've already talked about it. They pretty much have to win out the rest of the games, and they're going to have a big showing in the Big 12 tournament, I think, to make it. I think when I saw they were one of the last 4 in, but again, they gotta continue to win during the home stretch as we get closer to March Madness. Women's and men's gym coming up. OU women's gym has a huge competition against number 1 Michigan at the Lloyd Noble Center this Friday. So that'll be a great matchup between number 1 and number 2. And OU's women tennis won the other day against Central Florida, and they have Illinois and Kansas upcoming. And last recap here, OU men's baseball taking on Northwestern State, again in Globe 5 Field. They played a 3-game series. OU men's baseball, won 2-1. So looking pretty good, especially after their stellar start last week. So that is my Wagons recap for the sports currently going on. I did have one question to ask the group here, and I did put it into our outline, so hopefully you saw it. Just want to ask, what do you guys think has been the most impressive program that you guys have seen so far?
It's got to be softball, but honestly, women's basketball. If you're not picking softball to be that, Jenny Baranchik, first season, she looks great in that team. Sorry, Jenny's a great woman. She is more than her looks. She's a great basketball coach, and her team is good.
I took it as I would say this, if OU starts winning, if OU starts the season 5-0, hey, Venables looks great.
Yeah,
that's how I took what you were saying. So.
Okay, well, good. I
got to clear the air.
I would like to go on record as a Program Guys podcast as a non-sexist podcast, and women are more than their looks. Let's just say that right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, just in general, the women are just knocking it out of the park. Like literally in softball, but like in other sports too. They're just doing great. I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome.
It's kind of every year.
Yeah.
They're always good at sports, and usually the men's programs are good too, but
yeah,
softball is winning natties.
Pat?
Yeah, one thing on the softball topic, justice for Allo, pitch to her. If you're going to get out there and pitch,
cowards,
pitch to them.
So here's my thing, and I was going to bring this up when we were talking about softball. Patty has got to, I think they've a couple teams have figured out where we're vulnerable, right? Mm-hmm. And they're not throwing the Allo. And I mean, they're doing that intentionally. One, because she's ridiculous, and probably another, they don't want to be the team that the record gets broken on, right?
Yeah.
But like Patty's got to do something a little different. I mean, if we're talking about the last two games that we've played, Tennessee and Utah, they've been tight, and they probably shouldn't have been that tight. And so whatever they are doing is working right now, and she's got to change it up, and we know she will. She's the GOAT.
It's fun watching OU sports over the weekend. You know what's even more fun? Ryan's must watch of the week. Ryan, I killed the segue again. I've seen this movie.
Incredible.
I watched it a couple weeks ago. I'm a big fan. Let's get into it.
All right, guys. We always tried to do different genres with Much Watch of the Week. So we're doing an animated film this time because I love animated films. Everybody should love animated films. Justice for animated films, honestly. They're not just for kids, guys. So this week we are doing one that hopefully a lot of people have already seen. It's been out a while, but it's called Encanto, and you can find it on Disney Plus right now. So this came out in 2021. It's a Disney Animation Studios film. So this is not a Pixar film. This is by the same studios who did things like Tangled, Frozen, a couple others here and there. So they have a really good history of doing these. I think they also did Zootopia, which is an all-time classic.
Great movie.
And so the plot of this film, for those who haven't seen it, it is about a family. And the family's name is the Madrigals. And they're an extraordinary family with gifts and kind of powers in a way. And they live in the hidden mountains of Colombia. So there's a Colombian film. And basically a place called the Encanto, which is, like where the magic is. So when you see the movie, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But the magic of this place has blessed every child in the family with a unique gift. So, one can control the weather, one can hear really well. So it's like magical gifts. And every child has a gift except the main character. Her name is Mirabelle. She does not get a gift. So that is at the very beginning of the movie, you learn that. And we find out that there is something brewing, that the magic in the Encanto is dying. And so it's really about how does the family come together to be able to save this place, save their home in times of trouble. And where can the one family member without magical powers, where can she play a role in all of this? Because she's a key piece in all of this.
Some might say find her own magic.
Some say might find her own magic, So it's a really, really good movie. And I'm going to start with barrier to entry, like I always do. I think people might just think this is a kid's movie, and that's totally fine. Kids are going to love it. I know my niece and nephew really like it. So, but I would say that this movie is like a bunch of other Disney movies and Pixar movies. This movie is not just for kids. It has a lot of good life lessons that I think we can be taught at any age, and it's also just like a happy thing to watch, right? The world is kind of in a shitty place right now. It's nice to watch really like good things and things that make you happy. So going into the high points, guys, I cannot emphasize this enough. These songs are so ridiculously catchy, like just crazy. Like they get stuck in your head and they just churn and churn in your head. And they're written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who did Hamilton, In the Heights, Tick, Tick, Boom. So you're going to get a lot of like Hamilton vibes if you've ever seen Hamilton either on stage or through Disney Plus. Mix of a little hip hop, a little bit of rapping, a little bit of traditional Disney songs, all within that.
Yeah, I've seen all the songs on Spotify Top 50, and I'm like, what is this crap?
Whoa, hey, take that.
Hey,
Patrick.
it's not just crap, and I'm gonna get to that, Patrick, because there's a fun fact with this movie. But the animation is completely stunning. Like I don't know how these people do what they're able to do. It's really, really incredible. The voice work is really good. The singers are really good and really talented. And it's just kind of a great story about family and how family can be messy, but also how family is very important. And also how you can find yourself even when you don't think you can, or the odds are stacked against you. So again, just a really, really like a feel good movie. Fun fact here, and Patrick kind of referenced this already. These songs have been very, very popular. So the most popular song from the movie is a song titled "We Don't Talk About Bruno," and it is the most popular Disney song that Disney's had since Aladdin's A Whole New World in 1994, which is just
wow,
crazy.
Crazy. I would think it'd be a Frozen song.
Right. No, this is higher than Let It Go from Frozen.
Mm-hmm.
It hit #1 on the charts in the US and the UK. It's the first Disney song to ever do that. Hit #1 on the UK charts. It's been translated into over 40 languages, and Disney released a video that shows the song being sung. It's 3 minutes long, and it shows it being sung in 21 different languages, and it like seamlessly transitions them. It's pretty incredible. The popularity of this song is insane. So that's probably why you've seen it on like the top of the iTunes charts. There's also another one that I gotta, give some props to. It's called Surface Pressure. It's got a ridiculous beat in it that it will just stay in your brain the entire time as you're watching it.
Is that the one with the strong sister?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's
Good call, Mark.
Infectious. It's infectious. So that is my must watch of the week. I want you guys to go see Encanto on Disney Plus. It's great. It's good for the whole family.
Love it.
So I got 2 things as you were talking. It was making me, I don't know, feel a little cheesy inside. So I was thinking, what is the greatest gift that you guys have given me? And that has to be all your friendships.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And the pod that we're doing. So I just want to say that's one of many great gifts that you guys have given me. The second thing is I get very
2. Okay.
Yeah, there is 2. There's always 2 with me.
Okay.
I guess I've seen Coco. Is it similar vibes to Coco as
Coco
well as
is Mexican? This is Colombian.
So that's not what I meant. I just like it's about family and all these other very similar vibe. I don't like the road that you just took there. That comparison.
You know what, Matt?
But what I mean
Matt?
is,
I was with Ryan, and I said I like Coco better, and he got on to me for the same thing.
Oh,
and
good.
to me, it's just like, okay, cool. Is this story something I'm gonna like? Like, am I gonna like the music? Am I gonna like the story? Is it set up kind of the same way?
Right. That's what I was getting to.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, yes, but it's not as good as Coco.
Okay.
Coco is incredible.
Right.
Coco's a Pixar movie. It's a little different, obviously, but they're both great. They're both wonderful.
Yeah, and
Recommend
for all the women listeners out there, I'm a very, very sensible, emotional person. So I cried really hard at Coco. Am I going to cry in Encanto?
There's one part that got me at the end. I mean, I'm obviously not going to spoil it, but no, it's no, like, I didn't cry in Coco. I bawled and Inside Out.
Dang,
So
that's the one.
It's not going to get you like that. There's been 2 of these that I've cried in, and it's Inside Out and Toy Story 3. So both Pixar movies. Haven't cried yet in a Disney Animation Studios movie, but hey,
we'll find out.
The next one got me.
Matt, real quick follow up, and this is it.
Yep.
Are you going to watch the movie alone?
I was honestly, after this pod, I'm gonna pop on Disney and watch Encanto by myself. So yes.
Okay. Well, this is an invitation for any of the single ladies out there. Matt's got Disney Plus. He's got a subscription. He's got a sub.
Yep.
So be sure to check him out.
It's a great date movie. I watched this with my girlfriend. We had a great time. It was a lot of fun. So
Ryan.
Come on.
And if you're an early listener on Tuesday, Matt's watching it tonight. So
That's right. There you go.
And
the
I'll watch it
DMs are
again.
open.
Yeah, I'll watch it again.
So that was Ryan's must watch of the week. Really, really, really good. You know, I love that it's the same studio that brought you Frozen. But you know what's not Frozen out there in California
Jesus Christ.
is Pat's hot take.
Wow.
And Pat, I need you to get that button back. Guys, these
That was
segues,
so good.
I'm telling
So
you,
good.
are so
man.
great.
You think way too hard about these, but I love it.
I just now
love
thought
it.
about it, man.
No, it's
What are you
great.
talking
It's
about?
great.
Great.
All
I
right,
love
Patrick, give it to me, buddy. Let's go.
All right. I've said this a lot to you guys in the past, but I think we need to have like a firm, real conversation about it. Here's what I like. These are things I like. When I go to restaurants and they're like, "You want to sit at the bar?" I'm like, "No, there's no backrest there." You know, when I go to a football game, I like having a plethora of food options. I like draft beer. I like being able to utilize my credit card. I like being able to logistically enter into a parking lot and then exiting that parking lot without having to wait for 3 hours for the dart to come around. I like a lot of people in the football games and stadiums that I'm in. I want 105,000 people if I can get 105,000 people versus 90,000 people. And for those reasons, I think we need to move the Cotton Bowl to Arlington, to AT&T Stadium, and all enjoy a nice temperature, weather-controlled stadium while watching a great game with a backrest.
Okay, so that is a piping hot take. Ryan's booing. I think it's a very hot take. I think you sound 45 years old right now.
Good.
Good. Okay.
I'm either really hot. The night before has me feeling tired because we're all going out. I'm tired. And I just want to watch the game in peace.
So 100 years of history mean nothing.
Yeah, the only constant is change these days, guys. Let's keep it going.
Okay.
This is objectively your worst take.
Yeah, this is a tough one. This is a tough one because listen, I agree with you that the situation of the Cotton Bowl and the game there, it's always hot, it's always sunny, it sucks to get into and get out of. I'm with you on all of that. But I prepare myself for 364 days out of the year that I will embrace the suck for one day.
We don't have to.
Yeah, we do.
There's
There's
nothing like
our
it.
fathers and our grandfathers
There's nothing like
before us have done so. So you know what we're gonna do? I get where you're coming from.
You know what? I'm gonna hop in here.
Get it, Matt.
I was gonna say, you know what? I somewhat actually agree with Patrick.
No, don't do this. No.
Here's my thing. The only reason I love the Cotton Bowl so much is because of the fair completely surrounding it, right? Obviously,
That's
the
your favorite
atmosphere.
part?
Exactly. The fair sucks too, Matt.
Okay.
Anyone who's like, I'm
is
gonna
the
go,
negative.
anyone who's like, I'm going to go watch the game at the fair. I'm like, why? Why are you
No,
going
listen,
to the fair?
leaving. Okay, because bad experience. The last OU Texas, it did take me 3 hours to get home. I could not find an Uber. It was miserable.
It's never good.
Miserable.
It's never good.
If they just move the fair to Arlington, I definitely agree. I love the fair. I love the atmosphere.
No.
You can fit in
No.
If you're gonna
20,000
move the
more
game,
people.
if you move the game, keep the fair where it is.
Jerry
But
Jones, you got my ticket, baby. We're going to Arlington. I love it.
No, Patrick,
guys,
I agree.
video
I agree with
replays.
Ryan. This
Look,
is tough.
So many
This
great
is-
screens to watch the replays.
So many
Man.
great screens.
So, Patrick,
You're right.
the game has been played in the Cotton Bowl since
What's your
1932.
point?
1932. Okay.
It's an old stadium. I get it. That's not my
point.
problem.
That's not my point.
Okay,
There is,
go ahead.
I swear to God, there's nothing in college football like when you get that overhead shot of the Cotton Bowl split 50-50 completely in burnt orange and crimson. And it is
It can still
electric.
happen.
Not in the, what are you
Split
saying,
it.
AT&T Stadium?
Yeah, we can split it.
No,
you just open up the
had
top.
we
Open up
had
the
an
top.
we had an OU Texas there for the Big 12 championship game
They
that
didn't
year.
make the effort to
It
split
was not the same. It didn't have the same energy. It didn't have the same feeling.
I was
Patrick,
there.
I
agree.
thought the side of the stadium that we were on at the last Red River game, where Caleb Williams threw the ball to Marvin Mims, I thought we were going to break the stadium. I legit thought we were. That's part of the thrill.
That's a problem.
No, it's not.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
No.
I remember sitting next to Mark at this past OU Texas,
Oh my
and it
God.
was the most electric environment I have ever been in.
Longest first quarter I've ever sat through.
Oh,
But you
boy.
can't
Oh,
like
My God, sitting next to Ryan at that game.
all of the things that you said are like negatives. Like, yes, if you take them separately, I think they're negatives, but to me, it's like part of the package. It's like, I'm going to go to the fair. I'm going to get my like tickets to get my beer outside. I'm going to leave the game at halftime and get my stamp so I can chug 2 beers outside before I come back in. You know, it's all part of like that experience about going. It's my favorite weekend of the year. And part of that is because it is at the Cotton Bowl, and it is always at the Cotton Bowl, and they better not move it.
Embrace the suck.
It's at the Cotton Bowl. Every time you wake up, you drink Fireball with Ryan earlier than you should. You get to the game. You have to go through the stupid fair. Matt, it's the worst part. I don't know what you're talking about. But you have to go through the stupid fair. And at the stupid fair, you see people you know from OU. You see UT kids who look so smug that you're just like, yeah, baby, I might get in a fight today.
Yeah.
Let's see how this fireball hits. Let's see how this first half hits. And man, then Kennedy Brooks and Marvin Mims go out and double-handedly win the game with the biggest comeback in series history. And Patrick's worried about a little bit of freaking air conditioning.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can't do it. I cannot do it.
This is a tough one.
I moved to censor Patrick.
So last week you guys were like, "Oh, it's a mild take." I came in hot.
You did.
You came in real hot this week.
This is your hottest take.
Yeah,
this is the licorice pizza of Pat's hot take.
It is.
That is. Hey, I am on your side here. Do not drag me into this.
You're not dragged. I'm referring to the situation.
Sadly, though, I think it will happen one day. I don't think they're going to put in enough money to continue restoring the Cotton Bowl for just one game or whatever they really do there. I do think that in 20 or 30 years we do see this happen.
Okay.
From
that's
what
fine.
evidence? What evidence?
It's just getting old. The stadium's getting old. I think like they
It's
will
already
eventually
old.
have
It's
to come
been
to this. They'll eventually have to come to the decision of like a safe stadium or moving it to Arlington, and then the repairs are going to cost a significant amount of money. I think it could happen.
Okay. Agree to disagree.
Marston will look something up and be like, not 20 or 30 years.
no.
Okay,
How
Mark,
much? Like,
50
we
years.
need to
It's
look at
gonna
the
eventually
revenue.
happen.
We need to look at the revenue the State Fair of Texas brings in, because it's a lot every year.
Yeah.
And OU Texas brings in a lot of money too.
It does.
Yeah, I can bring in more in Arlington. You can fit 15,000 more people.
But you lose all the fair. You
That's
lose
right.
all the
The fair gets hurt. The fair is the worst part. The Texas Fair.
It is the worst part, Matt. Don't.
It is
don't
the
mock
worst
it.
part, but when you're talking money and revenue, it's important.
All right. That was a spicy one. Patrick, good job. I want to get spicy one more time before we get out of here. By the way, Mark won the Twitter poll last week for his Mount Rushmore. So shout out to Mark. Good for you, Mark.
Congrats, Mark.
Nice. I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah.
Can
Ryan.
I just real fast to Patrick on something there?
Yes.
I did look something up. Both Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium and Darrell K. Royal Stadium, the stadiums for UT and OU, I got them flipped there, were built in 1923 and 1924. So they're 10 years older than the Cotton Bowl, and no one is suggesting that we tear down.
We don't
the
know if they've
stadium in
remodeled
Norman.
those. We do know OU's been remodeled.
Yeah, they've both been
That's a
remodeled.
good
You
But-
also have a reason to remodel it and like keep those stadiums up and
Cotton
running
Bowl
as
has
much as
absolutely been remodeled since 1932.
possible. I just don't know if they're going to put in millions of dollars to continue the structure.
I bet OU and
Okay.
Texas will shove in a lot of money. I don't know. I see them keeping it there.
Hot take.
Okay.
Inferno.
Inferno Tech. All right, I want to get a little more spicy before we get out. Me, Matt, and Pat were talking before we got you guys on here, and Matt and Pat, I think we want to do a celebrity boxing match between the two of them. This is going to be our Twitter poll this week. Who do you think can win in a boxing match, Matt or Pat? I picked Pat, but Matt goes the distance. I think it's a decision, and I think Pat takes it. Ryan, Mark, who you got?
You go, Ryan.
This is like a lose-lose situation for us three to pick between these two. I think it's Patrick.
Matt was not expecting that. Mark, who you got, bro?
I thought we were friends. I literally just told you the best gift you've given me is your friendship. And
Dude,
I hate you.
Pat's curling on our YouTube right now.
probably a 5-pound dumbbell right there.
Look, Pat told me he's going to start lifting ever since he got the spray tan. Yep, and I believe him, man. I believe him.
Right. Mark, who you got before we get out of here?
It's Patrick in like 2 rounds. It's
You
not
think
Matt's
in 2?
fault. It's
Matt,
not
I
Matt's
gave you the
fault.
decision.
He's just so much taller and so much
Yeah.
longer that like Patrick can stand 4 feet away and still land punches, and Matt is like looking up at his pecs. Well, chest.
Well, think about this one, Mark. And we are going to put the stats up. We're going to put the height, put the weight,
stats. Oh my
reach,
God.
whatever you need. The current boxing. I'm 4-0 currently.
Skin tone.
Yeah. But I do want to say, I think that would work against Patrick. He's so tall. He's so lengthy. I can just get right up in his grill. I'm so small. I'm so tiny. And let's just get this straight. Way quicker than Pat. I mean, he's got bricks for feet. He can't move.
Yeah,
the guy's got 2 left feet for what he's doing.
Right.
He's got nothing on me. I'd KO him in probably 4 rounds. It would take me 4 rounds to get up all to your face. But yeah, I get that.
Matt McGregor
Oh
Gann
my God.
talking his noise.
Yeah,
I
get
like-
a couple stepping stools in there.
Oh, perfect. That's a good
He's
way
more than
to
a
end
ring.
it. Thank you guys for listening to episode 8 of the Program Guys podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Be sure to follow us at Program Guys with a Z on Twitter, at Program Guys with a Z on Instagram. As always, we appreciate you listening and liking and subscribing to our show. Appreciate it. Pat, take us out.
Keep pushing it, baby.